Okay, welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Klopkin. The shot heard around the world was the palace intrigue with the coup, the successful coup attempt with Matt Gaetz taking down McCarthy. Gates, I just consider just, please. I don't even know how he's still holding a congressional seat. He was accused of despicable things. Let's just leave it at that. Your thoughts? And hold on, just when Biden, a new poll came out that he's at his lowest approval point of 36%. Yet with Gates and the six others, the Republicans managed to blow it, don't they?
This was a classic case of the Republicans shooting themselves in the
A
foot.
100%.
Gates is an abject moron, and
Moron.
several several Republicans have already said that depending on how his ethics investigation winds up, they're going to try to remove him from Congress. So
Good.
th- this was the dumbest thing he could have done.
And
He's
absolutely
accusing
at the wrong time.
right, he's accusing Kevin McCarthy of negotiating with the Democrats. Guess what? This is the House Speaker's job. He's supposed to be negotiating with the Democrats. So he forces McCarthy out for negotiating with the Democrats. And how does he do it? With a unanimous vote from all the Democrats.
Yes, and things that he pushed back on, important border control. The list goes on. Basically, he was an operative of the Democratic Party, a complete idiot, got no moral compass. Now I'd love your opinion on this because there was talk about Trump. I don't think it has any reality base to it. Trump, being put in as speaker. I think this whole coup hurts Trump because it's guilt by association. Tweedledee, Tweedledum.
It does
That's
hurt
my read.
Trump.
Your thoughts?
It does hurt Trump. Trump is not coming in as Speaker of the House.
I know that.
As,
No,
as,
it was just
I mean,
bantered about.
yeah, but I mean, even if it were possible, Trump himself has already said it's not going to happen. Here's the thing, though. There is a strong possibility that this entire thing was manufactured. Getz and McCarthy were played by Nancy Pelosi. Here's why I say this. For McCarthy to win the speakership, he had to negotiate with the conservative, Matt Gaetz in particular, and the group that eventually pushed him out. One of the things they decided they were not going to bend on is this notion that any one member can call for the recall of the speaker.
Yeah.
Prior to McCarthy, you needed a majority to do this. And McCarthy talked about this earlier. Spoke with Nancy Pelosi, and Pelosi told him, "Don't worry about it. Give it to them. I'll back you up if this happens."
Oh God. Well, let me interject one thing. Okay, what happened was despicable, but McCarthy was never a Mensa candidate.
He
just wasn't.
He wasn't the best, but you know what? The Republicans had a bare majority. McCarthy did the best he could. He worked with the Democrats because you need to do that to get things passed. Gates's big complaint is that McCarthy avoided a shutdown,
which would have played right into the Democratic hands. Oh no, make no mistake about it. Actually, I think McCarthy did a good job. Absolutely. And again, razor thin majority. So many pundits and political people on the right. What a dumbass thing to do. I think it's going to really f up Gaetz and Trump because it's just one more. It's like a death by 1,000 cuts. It's like It's a shit show. It's just
Yeah,
enough is enough.
this was the dumbest thing they could have done.
Ever.
And if it weren't enough, it gets dumber because the speaker pro tem sent everybody home for a week.
God.
We're trying
And go,
we're
so go
trying
ahead.
to avoid a government shutdown. They need to get the appropriations bills through. And I don't even know who it is, but this idiot cut everything off and shut them down.
And also did basically a schoolyard tactic of telling Pelosi to vacate her office. I'm no fan of Pelosi, obviously, and also did the same thing to Danny Hoyer. It just looks really childish, really stupid, not professional by any stretch.
No, the Republicans
When
need
Biden
to
was
get
bleeding,
yeah, the Republicans need to get the appropriation bills done and passed, not worry about which office Nancy Pelosi is in. And worse than this, Gates's again big complaint seems to have been that McCarthy was trying to put together appropriations bills that would actually pass the Senate. And Gates was like, no, we want everything in our appropriations bill as we want it. Then the Senate can put together theirs and then we'll negotiate.
boy.
Hey,
Anyway, let's politically everything optic wise a complete disaster exactly at the wrong time when your adversary is killing themselves. I'm talking about Biden and the Democrats. Then you have a self-inflicted Harry Carey, completely ridiculous. And it does. I talked about does it hurt Trump? Trump is his own worst enemy as well. You have I think a really good candidate, Nikki Haley, right? They were again. Trump has no friends, but they were supposedly friends. Obviously, they worked together. She was a UN ambassador. And what does he say? Because she's actually becoming threatened, he called her and he pulled some stunts, called her a bird brain. I mean, isn't this crap running really thin? Because I've had
yeah,
it.
I mean, first of all, Nikki Haley is more intelligent and more
Hello.
qualified for the presidency than Trump ever was.
Ever.
Second of all, Trump doesn't have friends because he doesn't value relationships.
Yes.
He has temporary allies, but
Yes.
he judges people by how loyal you are to him. He's a classic narcissist.
A baby. A baby, too.
And
The emotional maturity of maybe an eighth grader. Is that about accurate?
I don't even know if he's that mature. But
Actually, I kind of agree with that.
at this point, Trump needs to go away. Gates needs to go away. Nikki Haley needs to be, if not the Republican candidate, then at least the vice presidential candidate,
I think
because
candidate.
she is the best Republican for the country. Forget party politics. We need to look at who is going to be good for the country, and she is
100%
by
agreed.
far the Republican candidate that is most qualified.
Yes. And how does this play out? I think this whole shit show, including Trump's bullshit, he's out there, obviously, tech, on social media making an ass of himself. The Nikki Haley's, stupidity. I don't know. I mean, people might start gravitating to someone that's actually qualified and mentally stable. I really believe. I mean, I think and I don't believe the polls either, because the polls had Trump up by 10 over Biden, and now they're tied. I mean, do the polls even mean anything at this point?
But at
Because I
this
think there's a
point,
huge Trump fatigue.
yeah, at this point, the polls don't mean anything. Nobody who has ever polled in front this far ahead of the primaries has actually won the primaries. So the polls don't mean anything at this point. The polls will start meaning something around January.
Well done. And speaking about shooting yourself in the foot, I think it's more than likely. I think I would bet. I would bet yes, no doubt. I wonder what the Vegas odds are. What's the African American that's looking at an independent run. He's pretty much in. RFK, I believe, is going to announce that he's in as a third party. Mansion may be looking at something like that. Dick Morris says if RFK puts himself in as an independent candidate, Biden's cooked. Obviously, that was before the fiasco. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, at this
First of all,
point,
will there be
most
a third party candidate, and how much reception that person will get?
Well, I think if both parties keep shooting themselves in the foot
God,
like they've been doing, I definitely think at the very least No Labels is going to put forward a candidate. I don't know if RFK is in talks with them or if he's
he
trying to do an
should.
independent run on his own. I don't know. I No Labels has stated point blank that they would like a ticket with one Democrat and one Republican. I don't see RFK melding with what No Labels has planned.
Agree.
So
Good point. Very good point. 100%. Because he's pretty out on the left overall.
yeah, he there's a lot
He's a
to him that's
populist, but
still
a leftist populist.
yeah,
Go ahead.
it's so we'll see if Kennedy runs as a third party, it's going to pull Democrats who don't want Biden. If there's him and a No Labels candidate, Biden is cooked. However, given Trump's propensity for shenanigans and again shooting himself in the foot,
And us and everyone, and all
can
Americans. Go ahead.
if No Labels runs a real centrist campaign, let's say we've talked about this, let's say Manchin Haley, and again, there's no evidence that No Labels has proposed this ticket. I'm just using it as an example.
Mm-hmm.
If No Labels runs a centrist campaign, Biden is cooked. Kennedy could pull enough people from the Democrats and from the never Trumpers. No Labels would actually have a good chance of winning.
I would vote for that ticket. How does that sound? I like it in reverse, though. Haley Mansion, obviously, that's not realistic, but I would vote. I'm sick of the shenanigans. I just want someone that's stable, not a nutcase like the squad, not a dimwit like Biden who's senile, that doesn't even know what he's doing. I've had enough. I think Americans have had enough. I think they would gravitate towards that because Trump has become, let's be honest, okay, Biden's got dementia, but Trump is getting they talk about Biden getting exponentially worse as time goes on. I believe that's true, but so is Trump. It's just Miley, the Joint Chiefs should be executed. I mean, God, that's not presidential. I mean, as
Well,
a joke,
yeah,
maybe. Come on, the whole thing is bullshit. It's ridiculous.
no, I think America is tired of the shenanigans. They're tired of the name calling. They're tired of the partisan politics. I honestly believe a third party has never had a better chance
Never,
than they
ever,
do in
ever
2024. And I mean,
better than Ross
let's
Perot.
yes, and let's face it. People are tired of the idiots that are being sent to Washington. I mean, come on.
I got to interject one thing. Speaking of idiots, we have a Democratic Representative Bowman. Talk about idiots.
Yes.
I'm sorry, really low on the IQ bar, pulling the fire alarm. He was a principal. I don't know how that happens, but anyway, I don't even know how he got out of college. But the excuse. That's how overall. This is completely stupid. Like you can't even put words to
No,
describe it.
this
And then what's his out? He starts blaming the Republicans for some of them being Nazi members. That's who we're sending to our nation's capital. I mean, this is insane. A
yeah,
moron.
his excuse was he thought the fire alarm would open the door. When has a fire alarm ever opened doors? He was a
Maybe if you're on
principal.
acid.
Yeah, he was a principal. He used to run fire drills on a regular basis. He knows how this
Of
works.
course he does. He probably suspended students for pulling the stupid alarm.
Right.
Genius, the boy genius. So yeah, that's who we the hook. And I guess AOC came to his defense. that he was running
Yeah,
away, he felt threatened. I mean, that's another knucklehead that needs to go.
another Mensa candidate. Remember,
A genius.
she felt she felt threatened during the riots when no rioter was anywhere near her.
Well, it's her need for attention. I mean, if she was in Alaska, she'd feel threatened during January 6th. It's just another way of bringing attention to someone. I love the adage that she's a TikTok celeb influencer that just happens to be a congressperson.
Yes.
You can't say it any better than that.
Yeah, I honestly believe we need a third party at this point because
100% agreed.
this has gone too far. You and I, going back to terrestrial radio, have asked the question: Is America essentially ungovernable? And I think the only way that we can govern now is a third party to
Well
sort of
said.
kick the existing parties in the butt
A
and go,
hundred
no,
percent.
you work for the American people, not for your party. And and the parties have gotten out of control. The DNC not allowing RFK to debate Biden, the RNC just stepped in. There was supposed to be a joint appearance on Fox News. It was Chris Christie and
Yeah, and
I don't
Deswani.
and this, yes, and
Yeah,
the RNC stepped in and went, no, you can't do that, you have to appear separately. Excuse me, who is the RNC to be telling Fox News how they can do their business? The DNC and RNC have taken far too
both
much
corrupt.
control away from the American voter.
Yeah, well, and also it's disingenuous because you have to face it, the Democratic Party pulls that shit all the time. But then you have people, from conservative media talking about it. Well, guess what? They're doing the same thing. What's the difference? Okay, so stop it. Both parties need to be reinvented, reinvigorated, and cleansed because they're not. They're all. Both of them are corrupt. Both of them serve the same masters, and people that, let's say, on each party that are on the outside, so to speak, like Gates and the others, they're nutcases. Whether you don't have positive influences, influencers, I should say, trying to remold the party. The people that are doing that are insane, like AOC, Gates, and the list goes on. And Bowman, the fire marshal of the Congress. It's just pathetic. Speaking of pathetic, though, we have Hunter pleads guilty. Your thoughts? Where do you think this is going? Anywhere?
I don't know that it's going anywhere. I think he will eventually be found guilty. He will probably be given a massive fine and a suspended sentence
A
because
hundred percent.
he's a first time offender.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what happens with the tax cases because allegedly those charges are still coming as well. Except the most serious of them, the Justice Department dragged their heels long enough for them to be outside of the statute of limitations.
Oh, speaking of our Justice Department, I don't watch 60 Minutes anymore. I used to with Mike Wallace, dating myself, but I don't really care. It's just a liberal rag, really. They had Garland on. I saw an excerpt, the little crying baby. I almost brought to tears. I mean, stop it, please. Cowboy up, dude, about how he's this, that, and the other thing, and how he had never talked to Biden about anything. Please, you're killing me. But yeah, I don't think especially with the palace intrigue. I think the impeachment inquiry and the Hunter thing totally will get and has been sidetracked. Thank you, Gates and the other morons, and we'll see how this all plays out. The only maybe shining or sunlight in the whole thing is that it further hurts Trump and the band of nutcases that follow him in Congress and are beholden to him. But we'll see how that plays out. Um, Something that we've talked about and you brought to my attention on even going back to terrestrial radio because history books really forget. In fact, I almost threw up when I think LBJ was placed maybe in the top 7 or 8, within the top 10 presidents of all time. Dr. Lopkin, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's
The absolute
absolutely
worst. You ever
ridiculous.
hear of Vietnam genius? My God.
Well, I mean
And go ahead.
that's been rewritten. I have actually spoken to people and pointed out and just talking about Vietnam, talking about how Johnson sent our troops in because the president of France had been fighting in Vietnam for quite a while. He asked LBJ for help, and LBJ sent troops in. I have actually had people tell me, "Oh no, that's not true. Nixon sent the troops in."
Oh no, I love
It's like,
that. Do you know why? Because Nixon had got inherited a shit show, a tragic shit show. In fact, if he didn't get impeached, we might have had an honorable settlement, not victory, settlement. No, he tried to make the best of a shitty situation. Johnson effed it up. He sent the people that he supposedly cared about, the underprivileged. They were doing the battle, not the college people in Ivy League schools. And he also did something that he takes all, everyone, he gets all the accolades from academia about the Great Society. Guess what? The Great Society, and I agree with Tim Scott, it basically destroyed the African American community before the Great Society when African Americans were facing real discrimination, not like the discrimination that Meatball, the Philadelphia influencer, is talking about, but real racism. They had more intact marriages. The list goes on. I mean, totally stand
and
up, and they say in Yiddish, menches. And now, fast forward 65 years later, I'm not sure it's recoverable. How does that sound?
no, I
Because you
think it,
got males out of the household.
I think it is recoverable. I actually know a couple of organizations who are working to solve this problem. But of course, the reason we're bringing this up is because Tim Scott has been talking about this on the campaign trail.
And he's
And
correct.
he is probably the first African American with a national audience that has talked about this and talked about the damage that the liberal policies have done. And let's face it, you and I can talk about this till we're blue in the face, but we're not black. We're not African Americans. For an African American to come forth and say this, there's more weight to it because his family lived through this.
100% agreed. I also blame the black enablers that are in Congress and have been there forever since this bullshit happened. Where's their voice? They see what's happened. Is their political ideology trumping, no pun intended, their duty to their own community? I say yes.
Well, at this point, I can't name anybody in either house, Congress or the Senate, that has put their communities above their parties.
Agreed.
It's all about party politics, keeping their jobs, and doesn't matter race, creed, color, religion. They've all sold out the people that voted them in.
And that gets to our previous point, I should say. That's why the two-party system needs to be cleansed, and a third party would be probably the only thing that can save our fragile and increasingly precarious situation with our democracy. Final thoughts, Dr. Lopkin.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to say it. We need a centrist party, so, a party that is not focused on their own power, but actually representing the people that elect them. Congress, the president, the Senate, they've all forgotten that they work for us, not the other way around.
And you know something? We said this on terrestrial radio. Like Casey Stengel, you're a New Yorker, ex New Yorker. Casey Stengel said when the New York Mets, maybe in 62, lost like 140 games, a reporter asked Casey, how did this happen? And he goes, well, it's a team effort. And we talked about that in terrestrial radio. No other country could go from the penthouse to the outhouse like America has done if you even tried to do that. So, what's the point? The point is they're not serving us, they're serving themselves and their own special interests.
Exactly. It is absolutely ridiculous.
And Dr. Lopkin, this show is not ridiculous, I believe, and we're actually increasingly gaining traction, aren't we?
We are. And of course, we'd love to hear from our listeners. So go to Carnivore Radio on Facebook, message us, and let us know what you think. You can also send us your comments at xvadio.com/connect. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. I'll see you next week.
We'll see you then.